This conference will now be recorded.
All right, welcome everybody. Two things. One is it's good to see everybody, I guess, number one. Two is, I guess, Merry Christmas, because we probably won't see each other between now and Christmas time, or Happy Holidays, whatever the appropriate way to say that. So that's everybody. I also wanted to let you know there's a new person out today, Scott Smith. He's with a company called JR Tech. And how long have you been there, Scott? I forget.
I've been here for 7 years.
7 years as the marketing person that whole time?
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm working with Scott as part of some work I do with TBG on the side, and it's I thought it'd be useful for Scott, since he's been kind of, as a marketing person. I think he's been through the Robin Robbins cycle, but I thought it'd be interesting for people just to hear what AtNetPlus is doing this year. I don't know if you're going to go into, are you going to go into your numbers, Marissa, in terms of sales and all that stuff in your presentation?
I don't have that in this, but I have a general idea, so I'll try and answer questions the best I can.
I was just going to say, from what I've known, I just got off the phone with Jay and Teresa an hour ago, and I think it's fair to say that you guys have had kind of a record year, and it doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. And
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, just for orders of magnitude, what they have sold in a year. So if you think about, the amount of net monthly recurring revenue they had in January versus what they have year to date, is that number has gone up something like $150,000, which is, it's in that ballpark. I don't know the precise numbers, and that includes some amount of money that's from their application side, but it's a small percentage. It's maybe 20% or 10% of that number. So they've had a phenomenal year, and it's interesting because we had a presentation by Jay at the last SDP meeting, and if we went through it, it's really not like they did something this year that created that amount of revenue. It's really just been a cumulative effect of stuff they've been doing for the last 5 years that over time has kicked in, and we've seen some of the benefit here. And they're also doing some things kind of innovative that I think would be worth sharing with the group, so that you can listen to it and see if it's something that you want to build into your own plans as well. So I guess the context of doing this today is just for you to hear what, based on, as you go through it, Marissa will talk about what's new things versus what's traditional things, but just kind of looking at like what's a state-of-the-art marketing plan look like for the MSP industry, and how can we together start to build some of that same thinking into the plans that we're putting together for ourselves. So with that, Marissa, I will turn it over to you and mute myself unless I have a question to ask you, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect. So Michael did a good job of setting all of this up, but like he was mentioning, this is still somewhat of a work in progress as we're moving into the new year, because things are just changing so much recently. So if you guys have any feedback after this and we do this exercise, I'm still more than willing to kind of hear the feedback. And if you have any questions throughout, just feel free and stop me at any point. Okay, so I tried to keep this as pertinent to this group as possible. So I figured I would go over my actual goals, and then the integration and overlap that actually is with the sales plan, because my marketing plan is written into and built into the sales plan with kind of the corresponding parts that go to each other member of the team. And then the activity that I plan to do to achieve the goals that I set. I set out the MDF part separately because a lot of people have questions about that, and it seems to be what most people are interested in because it's free money, and who wouldn't want that? And then I kind of put this section in for new challenges for me to overcome. I mean, I'd be happy to kind of get some feedback from the group, but that revolves around our company trying to acquire other companies right now. And we actually set out a brand new managed services offerings that are security based. And that kind of is going to change the direction that we've had so far. And we will not be taking on any new, what are called basically time and materials clients anymore. And this will be the new direction. So that will be how I wrap that up. So for me, I tried to make the goals as specific as possible and as measurable as possible. That'd probably be my #1 recommendation to you guys, even if you're setting it because you just want to raise the bar to a certain point. I think making sure that it's specific and measurable are probably your two most important things. But luckily with marketing, there's a lot of tools to do the measuring for you, but then unluckily with marketing, it's kind of what I call the long game. So you could talk to somebody 5 years ago and you've been hitting them at key points over the years, but they don't actually close the business until 5 years later. But they can say, you know, oh, I checked out your LinkedIn. I saw you won this award. I saw your website. So they'll list all the things that you've been doing over this period of time, but they obviously don't close the business until that end part of the journey. So again, kind of just keep that in mind with your goals, that it's going to be a little bit fluid. But our goals are 15% increase in website traffic per quarter, and that's cumulative, so that will continue to basically increase over that increase, if that makes sense. I figured that was pretty reasonable. I tried to do some market research as to what the industry was seeing, and I tried to kind of keep it at high enough to kind of encourage me, but not so high that I get discouraged when I can't hit it. So I'm hoping for that. And then on the prospect side, we're going to try and do two, what I'm calling like a dual event. So basically it's the same event, just in two different key marketplaces. We've actually never done that before. We've only had one kind of in a centralized place that we kind of expected everybody to travel to. But this will be a little bit different this next year, as you know, we'll do one in, I'm in Ohio, so the Akron market, and then one in the Cleveland market will technically be the same event. So planning wise for me, I won't have that much more to do. It will really just be more securing the venues and everything. And then all the advertising will look the same. It just will be different geographies. As far as leads are concerned, again, this is kind of fluid. We look at it more as if we hit the revenue goals at the end of the year and we hit just kind of our overall goals, we don't get too bogged down in these numbers specifically, but this is what's outlined. So 2 FTAs a week or 8 a month total. It can be kind of feast or famine. We've had months where it's like, oh my gosh, we have like 20 leads that came in, and it's just kind of like, it's mind blowing. And then the next we could have 0 or 1. So it kind of just depends on what seems to be hitting at that time, of what seems to be kind of closing as far as FTAs are concerned, which is why I figured that the 10% increase in the LinkedIn followers actually would be a great goal, because it's not really the goal of securing the business right then. It's just securing a way to get in front of them. So I just kind of wanted to increase that traffic, you know, make sure that the people are seeing our posts consistently. Maybe they're engaging with us, maybe they're not, but when they have the need, hopefully they're thinking of us. And then as far as current clients are concerned, and this still has business development kind of undertones, but this is also just another part of my job, which I'm not sure if applies to most of you, but just in case, to schedule our client advisory meeting, it's basically when we just get our key clients together, we gather feedback from them, we can ask them any questions we want. That's perfect for marketing, because they basically tell us everything that we're doing really well and every way that we can potentially be getting a new client. And then pains that they're experiencing, we can kind of translate that as well, you know, especially industry specific pain. So that's a great way. And we're going to try and kind of elevate it this next year to make it like something really special, like inspiration from the Datto client event. I don't know if your guys' owners came back from that and kind of raved about it, but that's kind of where my head's at with that. And
Yeah,
then
just so
one detail.
Just so
Yeah,
people
so
know,
go ahead.
I know a little bit about it. So the idea there was Datto actually canceled their big conference in the live portion of their big conference in the fall. So they did instead was they invited the 100 largest partners they had, MSP partners, to I think it's a day and a half meeting, Krista, but it was just happening in like Manhattan like a week ago or so. And they actually had the meeting on the floor of the American Stock Exchange, because they're the national, whatever it is, stock exchange, because Datto had gone public basically a year ago. So the idea was, the idea here is to, and I'd encourage people to pay attention to how many kinds of events and webinars they have in the plan. Because if there's one thing that AtNetPlus does more than anybody is have these events. And they don't have to be, I mean, this looks like a lot with 100 people, but they don't have to be, you know, they don't have to be complicated to organize and conduct. You know, in many cases, a lot of the benefit gets to be from customers talking to each other, as much as the presentations that we make. So if there's one thing I say you guys do probably top top of the tier in the industry is having these kinds of events consistently too. So that when they're and you have a variety of them, right? If we're talking now about the advisory meeting, but you have other webinars that you do once a month and all that stuff. So this is one thing I just wanted to put an exclamation point on. And I'm going to probably put a double or triple exclamation point on your next bullet point as well.
Perfect. And I'll go over the events a little bit more specifically as
Later
we get
on.
into it too. So
Yeah.
hopefully that will help. And a spoiler alert, our best events sometimes are ones that have nothing to do with the sales pitch at all. So maybe
Yeah.
that will put some of you guys at ease a little bit. But yeah, our last one is to basically revamp our referral program. We've had this in place for a while where basically, we give $100 if you refer somebody and then they at least have a conversation with us. But honestly, it kind of wasn't enough to encourage people to do something about it. I mean, people that wanted to refer were just referring anyway. So we kind of wanted to tweak it to $250 per introduction, and that's introduction, not referral specifically. So that means they are the ones sending the email and kind of introducing, or they are the ones coming to lunch with us to introduce us. And then regardless if that turns into business or not, period, they just get $250. So we'll see if this kind of encourages people a little bit more on the current client side.
Yeah, and I wanted to bounce back to your second bullet point too, because the other thing that I think is, again, endemic throughout the industry is if you look at how people promote themselves, it tends to be much too technology focused and offering focused, in my opinion. And I think what I encourage everybody to look at is to identify the client content that you put out there about the success and the relationships you have with your clients, and to almost make it very tangible about, like, when you do a QBR, for example. What is a QBR? Take you through a QBR process with a client. And I think that alone, that second bullet point, would distinguish you in your local marketplace much more so than anybody else. I mean, what people care about is the clients and the relationships you have, because your technology that you offer and the offerings you have are going to be fairly identical to everybody else. And the one example I thought about this the other day, I was talking to the SCP group generally, was that if you think about, like, everybody's pushing security right now, right? And everybody's security offerings are similar, if not the same, right? And so we market security. And if our current clients are not buying our security, what is that? What is the root cause of that? Right? The root cause isn't the security or the technology. It's the nature of our relationships with them. Right? Is if we have the right kind of relationships, it's going to be a very easy recommendation. They're going to take our recommendations and all that too. So that's an example of how, you really want to talk through, why do our clients love us, right? Like, what is it about the relationships that's different than the relationships other MSPs have with their clients? I would love to, my personal wish for you guys is that is like 80% of your content, right? And resist the urge to talk about technical offerings, right? So I'm sorry to interrupt you there. I just wanted to give you an A+ on your first two bullet points, my friend.
Thank you. And you actually bring up a good point that I meant to mention too. It's in my notes, and for some reason I can't see the notes, but that's okay. With the case studies, you're basically building out a profile of what almost your perfect client looks like, because you're highlighting the people that you have the best relationship with. So that can be used on the sales side just as much as it can be on, just posting what your clients have to say and all that. That's still valuable, and it's still good social media content or maybe even blog content, but you're basically building out that perfect profile. So you kind of know what to look for from there.
Yes, I think that's something I'm going to kind of bring it up again in the STP owners meeting. Is I really think what you want to do is to demonstrate. Can I say two more things about that really quickly? What we're finding is from clients that are switching now, this is kind of post-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, they're really switching now a lot more because of relationship issues rather than anything else, right? So because of that, and because our marketing is more intimately involved in the buying process now than it was in the past, is we want the messages that get to the prospective clients to say, why are we a better choice than your current situation, right? And I think a lot of our marketing content and our website content should answer that question. Why should I hire you instead of my current MSP? Right. And the best answer to that is, well, here's 10 clients and talk about the relationship we have with them and the impact we've had on their business. That's the kind of stuff we got to get out.
For sure. Okay, perfect. And the next part, I think this is kind of key. I'm sure most of you do this for the most part, but it's kind of has been slipped away from us for a while, and this is the first year we've done this so officially, but pretty much every single goal that I outlined is also kind of aligning with the sales goal, and that includes people of different roles. So all of my roles that are in conjunction with the business development cold caller and their email campaigns, and the director of business development who follows up on the leads and closes leads, we pretty much are working closely together at all times to make sure that everything that we're doing is kind of supporting each other, because like Michael mentioned, it's really not one thing that's closing the business pretty much ever. It's always kind of that combined effort.
Did you go through your the new out? I thought I saw it on the rest of your previous slide. You guys are doing something different for outbound. No, it's not in here, but are you guys doing something different for outbound business development now? Could you describe that if you know what that is?
Yeah, so actually just last week we signed the contract with the new company. Basically, we vetted a bunch of cold calling companies, and some of them still call, some of them just email. This one actually just so happens to just email. They do not pick up the phone one time. They don't look for phone numbers at all. So I mean, they were actually able to prove results with actual results, which is kind of what we were looking for. We didn't want the smoke and mirrors. We didn't want, oh, this sounds super great. We wanted people that basically their whole payout is based on when they give us, you know, FTAs that we qualify or business that we close. So they're barely getting paid anything at all on the base side. It's really only if we get business. So we kind of felt like that was kind of them putting their money where their mouth is. But only email campaigns, and that's personal email campaigns. So they're not sending it out through a platform like MailChimp or anything. It's actually their people reaching out, and it's kind of on behalf of us. So I can't speak to it too much because we just started it last week and they're still ramping up and everything, but I'll definitely report back to see if this was the best thing we've ever done or what.
Yeah, so I think the question I have is, so that when they reach out, what are you guys on HubSpot? Right? How do they reach out as if they work at AtNetPlus?
Technically, but it's with a different domain account so that if they get marked as spam, it's not like doing anything bad for our account.
And is it your sense, are they going after things are you guys going to work with them on the content of the emails and all that stuff? So is it they're going after specific industries, or what's the deployment?
So basically, we give them a list of people that they cannot contact, you know, i.e. current clients and different things like that. And we give them kind of just a blacklist, maybe people that we just don't want to work with or we worked with in the past. But then we can give them a list of either people that we would love to work with or just criteria in general. And they source all the leads for us. We don't have to technically do anything. I mean, we can if we want to, but we provide like marketing materials and different things to make sure that our voice is kind of consistent. But other than that, they're pretty much doing it.
That's a good experiment, because like when we talk about volume prospecting, it's different from, people interpret it mainly as like cold calling. But it's any kind of thing where the result is based on pure volume, you know, the amount that you do. And there was a guy that was on a call with us the other day who he got like 5 clients in 1 day, in 1 month. So I asked him how he did it. They said direct mail. And I said, how many pieces of direct mail did you send out to get 5 clients? And he said 24,000. So he pretty much broke even, honestly. But this is kind of in that vein where it's almost like it'd be curious to see how much volume results and how much results, you know. And help me with that though. Are you working with them on like the content of the email that they're going to send out, or do they have some secret sauce that they're bringing to the table for that?
They technically generate the content, but we approve it, and we have like bi-weekly meetings with them and stuff to make sure we're checking in, because they want to make sure that it doesn't sound like it's an outsourced company, but I don't know. I have a little bit of hesitation with it, but I'm trying to be open-minded. So
Yeah,
we'll see
me
how it goes.
too, but we'll see. But it's a good experiment. And so can I ask too, who is the person primarily working with them? Is it you or is it Teresa? Or both?
Probably more Teresa, but
Okay.
I've been having more of a hand in it recently just because of like the messaging and branding part. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
And do they do just email or do they do email plus LinkedIn?
I think just email, as far as I understand.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see. It'd be very interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, for sure. And just to keep in mind with that whole thing is that they are going to be doing these things while I am doing these separate email activities. So just something kind of to keep in mind. But basically my goals to support the goals that I have are to be
Mhm.
sending out a monthly newsletter consistently, and that will be to all,
Mhm.
clients, prospects, everybody. One additional monthly campaign drip for actively engaged prospects. So that's people that
Mhm.
we're already talking to in some
Very
capacity.
good. Very good.
And we'll make sure that those are either industry specific or service specific. And then one campaign for people that we've had absolutely no contact with at all. And that
Mhm.
might kind of overlap into what this new company is doing. So I'm not sure if
Mhm.
that will actually remain, but like
Oh, I would
Michael said,
encourage
kind
it.
of going to just see how it goes. So
Yeah. Well, I think the fact that it's industry specific, I think the content will be different, right? And second of all,
right,
is what I liked about it is if you're doing case studies, the case studies can actually be the content that you send out at some point.
exactly.
Yeah, that's really good. Very nice plan so far.
And then for website and SEO, continuing for the site speed, content's obviously important, but making sure people can actually access your site is super important. If it's not loading within, I think it's pretty much 1 second, they're already considering leaving your site. So just
Mhm.
making sure to continue to optimize that for speed and mobile. Um, Keeping an eye on the keywords. I think that a lot of people can just kind of set and forget, and I have been guilty of this multiple times. So it's not meant to be a pointed comment or anything, but that's definitely what I want to be focusing on. One blog a month. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I just need to make sure that I'll actually do it. As terrible as that sounds, is if I want to do everything I want to do, I'd need 100 of me. So I just kind of need to
Mhm.
keep it realistic. And then the last thing is super key, and I'm sure we've all struggled with this, but Google
Mhm.
review campaigns for local SEO. We
Yeah.
absolutely want to be getting more Google reviews and kind of continuing to see how we can encourage people to leave them. So the mail side, it's pretty light, nothing crazy, but I just wanted to make sure we were having a touch point in everything that I could. But basically just info, postcards for brand new prospects. It kind of just aligns with the touch points that the business development
Mhm.
person is making.
Mhm.
I think somebody in this group mentioned the Welcome to the Neighborhood gift campaign. I loved that idea. That really resonated with me. So we'll kind of just send that types of stuff out for new businesses kind of in our area, especially because we're already expanding into a completely new area. So there's going to be a lot more room for that. And then something simple like a holiday card for all clients and prospects. Just one more reason to get in front of people that's not too in your face on the sales side. For me personally, with LinkedIn, I'm just responsible to export monthly out of Sales Navigator and provide this to the business development person. And the reason that it's kind of on my plate is that I can do that first level scrub because I know
Yeah.
what we're looking for as far as location, industry, if there's a contact there and I'm kind of just spoon feeding them that, hopefully that's going to help them kind of close the deal because it's really up to me to kind of just support that person in that role. Um,
Mhm.
I want to continue to build my personal connections on LinkedIn. I need to make sure I'm even connected with all of you. See, I'm just not that good at that part. So I just outlined that specifically that when I go to conferences or when I go to events, even chamber events, I should be trying to connect with people. So when I'm sharing company content, it's just one more vein that people are seeing it. And then setting those same expectations with our sales team to be sharing company content or even just their own unique content that's company related. It doesn't even have to be
Mhm.
from our page too. So
Okay. Yeah.
oh yeah, do you need me to go to back or are you okay?
No, I was going to ask if it's on this section is, do you still reach out as if you're Jay too? Like your owner, like Jay Mello?
I haven't in the last probably 2 months or so.
Mhm.
I think because it's kind of all in flux. Jay was actually using I know, crazy, his own account to reach out to people.
Okay, all right. Because I think
So,
that's one thing I
especially
would,
with the acquisition stuff. So I've kind of taken a pause on
uh,
that part.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna say that for the rest of the people though, if your owner is not like a weekly or daily like LinkedIn person, I think one thing you could do is to do two things. One is to reach out for new connections as if you're your owner, because it's just a different kind of impact if it comes from the owner. And then two is, and this is probably where Jay got back involved, is a lot of people don't work their own contacts, right? So even just, routinely reaching out to like 5 contacts a week as if you're the owner is something you guys should consider putting into your plan as well. Have you, just out of curiosity, have you seen business come in to AtNetPlus based on LinkedIn?
definitely. And a lot of
Yeah,
it has come through Teresa's profile because
yeah,
people will reach out directly to her from her posts or
yeah,
just, like you said, working the connections. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So I would encourage everybody to kind of prominently, I know Mike's on here, that he does that kind of almost exclusively, but what I would do is make sure that you have a pretty strong LinkedIn
That's
component to
messed
what
up,
it is.
man. I'm right here.
I'm sorry, I didn't see your cheerful smiling face. There he is. I did see your cheerful smiling face, but with the exception
Like, in
of
all
like,
seriousness, I sat down with Keith yesterday and went through his LinkedIn network.
exactly, right.
Found 12 people in there, and I booked 4 meetings out of that.
That's a good advertisement for what we're talking about too, because Keith has been in business. How long has he been in business? He even had a mortgage company before.
22 years with
22
Advantage.
years. Yeah, that's just with the MSP, right? So he has a lot of people, but owners oftentimes don't appreciate the value of the network they have. Sometimes it's kind of like a I don't know, byproduct of just being an owner. So for those of you that don't do it, I know Claire's on, right? Yeah, Claire's on. So and Tara, like I would say, even if you ask Brian Eichler when he was there, they probably got 70% of their business from just Pam working her network in the financial services industry too. So as you do your plans, make sure that's a big component of it as well. Sorry about that, but I remembered you. Can I ask you a quick question though? So what did it used to
Yep.
look like when you did reach out for Jay?
Yeah, so I took see again, I value this group, so I kind of try and take the feedback and apply it to our own stuff. But I took some of Mike's advice and kind of I tried to find kind of that connecting factor,
There
whether
you
I
go.
kind of knew where they knew each other from or if they had some kind of other similarity. So I would kind of just keep it kind of casual and conversational. It definitely wasn't just right off the bat like, hey, I'm an IT provider. Do you need IT? Like it wasn't
Yeah,
anything like that. It was basically like, we haven't had an opportunity to connect much, we haven't had the same
that's
conferences or whatever. Would you
that's
have a
perfect.
chance to kind of chat for a couple of minutes or something? And some people did do it because they loved that approach. So
Yeah, that's perfect approach.
yeah, so I
Okay.
agree. That definitely works out well if you have the control of your owner's profile and if you kind of know them like the back of your hand, you could kind of act like them and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And then this next part too was from something that somebody else presented on, but resonated with me. And I kind of looked into this myself because I was interested more in how I can kind of automate this in some way. But just targeting companies who are hiring for IT resources, I thought that was brilliant. It's the perfect kind of wedge into co-managed services. And
Perfect.
since we've kind of built out co-managed for these new tiers that I mentioned, it was just kind of a perfect way to kind of send people information on this. So I loved that idea, and I think we should focus more on that for next year.
Awesome. Oh,
Here's the bread
cool.
and butter, like Michael mentioned, of kind of what we do. It seems like a lot, and we actually probably will have more on the docket than this, but I just felt like these things to touch on were pertinent for the group. So client advisory meeting, again, highly recommend a format of some kind where you're gathering feedback from your clients, and that can be remotely, but I've found that that format really for this does not work well. It's harder to get people engaged, and honestly harder to get them to commit to doing it at all. So just kind of lessons learned from that is if you're going to do it, maybe even if you're just taking one person out at a time, it's still worth kind of getting that feedback because it gives you valuable insight kind of into what they're thinking and maybe even the people like in their network what they're thinking too. So definitely worth doing. The Thirsty Thursday, I recommend looking in your area pretty much now that the whole small brewery thing is kind of like what's hitting it big right now. They have like traveling brew tours and just different things like that that are kind of just that attention grabber. It doesn't necessarily have to be some huge sales event. It doesn't have to be some conference that you're putting on necessarily. You can reach out to these people and there's some legwork for sure, don't get me wrong, but generally the venues are pretty much doing everything as far as setting it up and tearing it down. And that's really more what I'm looking for is I want to put in the back end work, but I kind of just want them to take care of it while it's happening. So this sub bullet point is important. If you're going to have a prospect event, I highly recommend that you invite current clients to it because you absolutely want people there that are kind of your plants that are going to just be talking up your company or you're already comfortable with. So you're kind of having fun and people can kind of see that dynamic that you already have. So highly recommend that. It's a little bit easier than just doing a prospect event, which is already kind of difficult to get people to go to anyway. So it fills seats and it kind of achieves something for you. 2 small events with a partner company. We've talked about this before, so I won't bore you guys too much, but of course, industries that have overlapping clients with you guys, like HR, accounting, law, like some software. I know some of you guys do software, so that probably wouldn't necessarily work for you, but you have the exact same client market. So getting in front of each other's clients, super valuable, and they pay for half of it anyway. So it just kills 2 birds with 1 stone. I have the Top Golf in here as an example. We've done events for as cheap as total about $500. So for $250 a piece, we got, I think, 10 leads out of that or something. It's an absolute no-brainer. So
just to be clear, when you did that too, you did it. Yeah, you said here with a partner company, your Top Golf too. Was that the Microsoft Dynamics company or who was the partner? Do you know? Yeah.
Yep, you got it. We did it with them twice.
Twice. So the basic idea is you partner with somebody, in webinars, for example, you've done with law firms, accounting firms and such like that. So you could do it with those people as well. But basic idea here was that Jay had known the owner of this other company, and they always talked about, we should be doing a lot more together, and it never seemed to go any place in the past. So one of the benefits of this was there was such a low barrier to doing it, which is basically you had to get a venue. And Jay had to agree to bring, I think it was like 2 clients to begin with, and the other person brought 2 clients. Is that how it started, Marissa?
Yeah, it started small on purpose.
And I think now they're going to be maybe bringing 5 a piece or something like that. They had some discussion like that. So again, that's another thing that's, it's not prominent in many MSPs' marketing plans. So I'd start to look at all the different ways you could do these mini events, as well as the next bullet point she's going to talk about too, which is, I'm surprised your webinars are quarterly. They seem like they happen more frequently to that than me though.
I think that we've kind of seen the effects of the webinar burnout. So it's become a little bit less of the desirable thing, but we still obviously think that the education is important and we get a lot of leverage after the fact. So we thought that quarterly seemed pretty reasonable.
Yeah, and I think the other thing there was some of those webinars you did with allies as well, right? So that's when you did the law firm and I think you did one of the brokerage company, I forget who it was, but Jay, last year, I'm sure you did more than 2.
Yeah, the law firm has been our biggest partner just because they offer like the cyber liability, which has been big. Yeah.
So that's the other thing I want people to put in their plans too, is a lot more stuff with allies. Right. I would say in general, I could go through an entire, not picking anybody on the phone, but you can go through a whole marketing plan. If you're not doing stuff with allies, you're really missing the boat, because they actually help you get people to the events and help people get to the webinars. And really interesting too, if I remember, Marissa, too, the company, the law firm was named Brock something or other. And my recollection was after they did the webinar, one of the partners referred a pretty sizable client to you, even though the person wasn't at the webinar, right? So it just elevates the relationship you have with referral sources too, that they're more actively invested in it and tend to spend more time looking out for opportunities for you.
Definitely. And if you can be the IT provider that's in the pocket of these law
Yeah.
firms, that will happen for you all the time because they're probably not going to work with your competitors if they're working with you. I shouldn't say that across the board, but generally speaking.
Awesome. Okay.
And
Ice cream
then
social.
Ice Cream Social, again, think something that somebody brought up on this group. You guys should know that I actually value you, but I love that idea. The good part about the Ice Cream Social is I have a little bit to do if we're going to cater it, but honestly, it's just the account managers basically taking all of the stuff and doing it. So I don't really have to do anything else for that except for if we're going to promote it, great. But otherwise, it's more of just like a client gesture. So we'll plan on doing those this summer too.
So just to be clear there too, that's like you do it for a specific client, right? Is that true? You actually go over to their office with the ice cream?
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
We already picked out the clients that we're going to plan on doing it for. Obviously, it's kind of revenue and project based. They don't have to know that, but it doesn't hurt.
They have to spend enough money to get free ice cream, huh?
Pretty much, yeah, the $100 ice cream thing, yeah. Yeah. And
Okay.
then advertising, this is kind of my little bit of a transition into the MDF, so I will be getting into that into the next slide more specifically. But our Google AdWords pay-per-click campaigns, basically what I've learned with this especially is that you have to continuously monitor it and tweak it because you might be hitting for keywords and paying for keywords that have absolutely nothing to do what you're advertising for. But it's just, you have to kind of fine tune that over time. So that's paid through for us through the Microsoft funds. That's something that they'll pretty much cover, no questions asked. I've tried to get them to cover other things and it kind of just becomes a little bit of a process. So if I had to recommend something to use Microsoft money for, it would be the Google AdWords. And then the radio ad through the fan streaming service. So that's a sports radio that's local to us. We've had huge success with this in driving traffic to the site and having more conversations. I hate to say it this way, but I have to because it's my job. It's predominantly older male audience, which is kind of like our target audience for business owners. You just have to make sure that you're ensuring that your message is standing out amongst kind of the white noise of advertising. We've gone kind of more with the goofy, funny route. And at first, I was kind of hesitant to do it that way, but that's really done well for us. So if you guys have any questions on kind of radio advertising, I am no expert by any means. We've only done this for probably 6 months, but we've seen really good results for it. So I can send you guys the files of the commercials if you want.
I think another important point to make in all this stuff too, and I'll be brief here too, is even though we go through this thing line item by line item, I think we did an analysis, so you guys did an analysis, Marissa, where you listed out all the new clients you got this year, and you went through all the different ways that you engage with them. And I think what happened was it was not any individual, like it was very rare for like a new client to be generated by a single thing, right? It was that they had get hit by all the stuff collectively over time.
Definitely.
And I think part of that was when we were talking about the radio advertising, it wasn't that the radio ad brought in tons of new clients. What was interesting was that it just stimulated more word of mouth among your current clients and your good allies. That isn't this something interesting that AtNetPlus is doing, and it just kind of brings you up in their brain more often when they're thinking about, who should I refer people to for IT services, right? So we're not saying,
Exactly.
do an ad so you're going to get clients. It's like, here's the benefit we saw from adding a radio ad to the mix, and here's how that costs people to potentially just like refer other people, right?
Definitely. Even for referrals, technically, maybe that was what caused them to close the business, but they absolutely mentioned, like, I checked out your website, I looked through the pages, I looked through your LinkedIn. So it's always kind of a combination of some kind.
Yeah, it's the integration of all the stuff and the kind of precise nature of the content that's actually doesn't always come out when we kind of talk about it kind of step, point by point. So I just wanted to reinforce it for people.
Yeah, definitely. Okay,
MDF.
this is the part that everybody cares about, which is the free money. And I absolutely recommend that every single one of you does this if you do not do it already. But no one is going to even bat an eye if you are reaching out to literally every single vendor that you work with. And I'm not exaggerating. I tried to give as many examples as I could. And this is going to vary. So kind of keep your expectations in a reasonable place. But, you know, Datto could give us $10,000 a year, but then WebRoot used to give us, I think, 250 or 500 a year. So this is going to vary a lot depending on the size of the vendor that you're working out. But I guarantee you that at least one of these is going to have free money for you to use. And I'm going to skip the second bullet point for just a second so that I can touch on this last one. You want to stand out from the other people that are asking for this money when you're asking the vendors, and you want to basically give them right up front, here's the benefit if you give us the money and you support this event. Here's the ROI I'm expecting. Just kind of give or take. You can kind of just give that as a ballpark, and then just helping them kind of see that you're trying to help them get their goals accomplished. You know, if you're going to have some kind of sales data afterwards and you provide it in some kind of report, like they will love you and they will just offer you money after that. So keep that in mind, is you don't want to just say, hello vendor, I want this money. You kind of just want to almost pitch it to them in a way where they're going to immediately be sending it up the chain to how they're going to actually give you the money. So that's my suggestion, definitely.
Can I ask
And
you a
with
question?
Microsoft, yeah,
My
go
friend,
ahead.
how much total MDF do you think you got year to date?
Well, let's put it this way. We've had years where we actually have had like a positive marketing budget, which means like we had more money than we spent. So it just depends on the year, definitely. And COVID obviously impacted some things with MDFs too. So that's just keep that in mind. But you can pretty much get anything paid for that you want within
That's
reason.
interesting. Yeah. And of all these people, I think we got to talk about Microsoft specifically. Who are your traditionally your biggest sources? Was it Microsoft?
Microsoft definitely was the biggest. Datto
Okay.
was the second biggest. Let me look at this list really quick. In the past, Star to Star was probably our third biggest, but because we've gone to Teams Voice, that's
Teams.
obviously not really the case anymore. We don't work with Cisco too often, but I would have to imagine their program is probably pretty decent. Yeah, Sonic Wall's a good one too.
Sonic
They used to
Wall.
give us a decent amount of money on there too, so. But yeah, specifically with the Microsoft program, and I put the partner portal link. Let me preface this by saying you might not have access to see the tab that you need to see, and you might have to be given access from your admin of the account. Too complicated really to explain all of that. So if you are having trouble seeing the incentives tab, just reach out to your company's administrator for the account and they should be able to take care of it. That's really all I know. But they have specific incentives. So if they are pushing, let's just say they're pushing cloud and Azure really hard in one quarter, they might give you 4 times the amount of money if the content that you're putting out has to do with cloud or Azure. So definitely look at those incentives to see if there's something that already aligns with what you're going to be doing, but they give thousands and thousands of dollars. Like I think for us, maybe last year it was with partner incentives like $20,000 or something like that. Like it's a significant amount of money.
I was going to say too, last year, if I remember correctly, did you take some of the MDF funds and test out LinkedIn ads specifically? And
Yeah.
What was the result of that experiment? Would you recommend looking at LinkedIn, or just you wouldn't recommend LinkedIn ads, or what? Where do you come out in that?
To be fair, I'm definitely not a LinkedIn ads expert, so it's possible that I did not optimize it as much as I should. And I know from our last actually person that presented with the link in the post, how that pretty much kills the post.
Yeah.
I think I had links in mine, so that already probably undermines that. But in my opinion, they were just pretty expensive for what you were getting. Like you were getting a lot of impressions, but we just didn't see the business kind of return on it that we were
Any
hoping
kind of
for.
engagement.
So
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. And when you say Google ads, do you do Bing ads too, or just all exclusively Google ads?
we only just do Google, mostly
Okay.
just through that one interface really, but.
And are you seeing for the investment that you made in it, did you see yourself getting inbound leads coming out of that investment at all?
I definitely think that pretty much almost every touch point we've had this year that's turned into business was touched by something that was paid for by MDFs, whether that was an event or the Google
Interesting.
ads or whatever.
That's a really good point.
So yeah, again, here's some examples, but you can pretty much go through every vendor that you personally use. Maybe it's even a software that only your company uses, but they probably have a program of some kind because when their partners grow, they're more likely to spend money with them. So it's kind of the whole like you scratch my back, I scratch yours situation. So I definitely just try to work with like your account manager. And if you need that contact info, I'm sure somebody has it. Or you can even just reach right out on their website and typically they can get you to the person that you need.
Awesome.
And then my last thing, and I mean, I'm happy to kind of hear some feedback on this. I don't know if we're kind of unique in this way or not, but our company is looking to acquire 1 to 2 businesses over basically 2022. One that is actually kind of in talks right now. I don't know how that's all going to actually go, but it's almost the size of our company now. So obviously, as a marketing person, that presents a lot of challenges for me to integrate 1 to 2 entirely different businesses into our primary location, and from culture and branding and just every kind of perspective you can think of, just kind of making sure that that's announced properly to our clients, to their clients, kind of how we're going to move forward in the market, increasing the marketing staff pretty much overnight, so to speak.
Mhm.
That would be interesting. So
But
we'll kind of see how that goes, but
can I call a quick time out here just so people understand this, right?
yeah.
So this actually came from 2 STP meetings ago, right? So I met this through some workshops that I met a MSP in New York who basically acquires 2 or 3 MSPs every year. So I had him come to our owners meeting, and the basic thing we wanted to know was like, well, how do you find them? And the idea was there was somebody, his co-owner, entire job was to find acquisition candidates. And the reason we want to bring this up and why it's important to an MSP is it's one thing to say you want to acquire somebody, but literally nobody in STP was putting in the effort to actually do anything about it. But to Jay's credit, he heard this guy. And this guy said all this guy does was actually he basically markets himself to fellow MSPs as if you're marketing to prospective clients. And he just gets a list of them and they talk down and find ones that are in their age group and the situation where they're interested in being acquired. So Jay, the only reason I bring this up is Jay is brilliant at actually hearing an idea, committing to it and executing it, but executing it with the help of really good people that work for him. Right? So he just treated it as a fact that, he wanted to go out and talk to MSPs because he wanted to see if he could buy somebody, particularly in Cleveland. Jay's in Akron, which is, I guess, south of Cleveland. So the only reason I wanted to bring this up is I'm going to talk to the MSP owners about it. It's a job for the owner or the owner with support of marketing people can be to actually identify other MSPs that are in a position to be talked to about acquisition. And frankly, almost every acquisition I'm aware of within TBG as well as STP, 95% of the acquisitions were done this way, right? And I won't give away secrets to Jay, but in the time he's done that, which wasn't even a full year, it's probably 6 months he's been doing this, he's gotten 2 live possibilities, which is pretty amazing. And I know Marissa's been instrumental in helping that out.
And ironically enough, the LinkedIn Sales Navigator has helped him find MSPs that even fit kind of the size he was looking for. So just kind of yet another kind of unique way to use that tool, just kind of tossing that out.
So I know you guys didn't probably have this in your marketing plan, but it might start to become a bigger part of your marketing plan as you go forward.
Exactly. So we'll see how that goes. And then pretty much my last part was the new security offerings. I put them here in case you guys are curious. I also have the pricing as well, but There is technically a third plan called the total plan. Really, the only reason that there's 3 tiers is kind of just that psychology behind, if you're looking for the best deal, you're probably not going to go for the most expensive one unless you really have a budget that's kind of not an issue, and that's not typically the businesses that we work with. So just psychology based wise, we kind of want people to fit into that middle tier, which would be the advanced. So that's not pictured here, but kind of just to like paint that picture for you guys. But basic plan is kind of similar to almost what our managed services are now, and advanced is adding a little bit, kind of within reason. But you'll kind of notice that really the key here is that we're doing a lot more security-based things, and we're baking that in to be kind of fundamental to the plans. So that's going to obviously change how our marketing of really our core services is going to change over time. And really, people have to fit into one of these tiers to even be a client of ours. We're not necessarily just taking on kind of the break fix people anymore, which is a big deal because that was kind of how our company started. So it's been a complete change. So, but that's
How
what I
long have
got.
you guys, yeah, just one last question. I was talking, I know the answer to this, but I'll ask it anyway. So what's interesting here, and it's a question that you should ask your owners to see how prominent something like this should be in your marketing plan, is it's funny because I've worked with a lot of the people and they've been talking about even people that launched their security offering in the beginning of the year or last year. And when I asked them, what percentage of your clients have the appropriate security protection that they should have, right, in your contract? And it's funny because just so you know, like when I asked Jay that question this morning, he said like 5%. Right. So this is not an insignificant revenue opportunity for you guys next year. Right? And then it's either, what's interesting, it's either 5 to 20%, or it's like 100%. There's like nobody in the middle, right? So I think one thing you want to expressly set a goal for in your marketing plan is what percentage of our managed clients should be on the appropriate level of security.
For Scott's question, the answer is yes. They have to buy the PC through us. If they source it through somebody else, that's all billable time. And to be honest with you, I think that even is going to change with some parameters when the new year hits. And kind of just to put a little bow on this part of it too, I mean, to be fair, because clients don't have the absolute clearest understanding sometimes of what managed services is, they might be thinking that you're already doing half of this stuff. So if they get into some kind of trouble and have ransomware or some kind of attack, they might just be assuming that because you're the IT provider, you're already doing everything anyway, when we all know that that's not necessarily the case. So this was kind of a way for us to bake this in so we are actually doing those things. And if they are going to deny the services, they have to more or less sign their life away and say, I don't want the security part of it. And so they're acknowledging that that risk kind of falls on them. And that's not something that we've done historically.
No, this is exciting. So how long have you been there, Marissa?
This will be my 6th year, but I've also had a lot of different roles at AtNetPlus.
I mean, as marketing director, I should have asked it more specifically.
This will be my, I believe, 2nd year.
2nd year, because I remember your plan from last year, right? Which is interesting. I like the fact that it's more ambitious. Honestly, I would say it's like 50% as ambitious as the one you had last year, which was ambitious as well. But
yeah, we're trying.
And the other thing I would say I wanted to ask you was, I know like when you talk about goals, I know Jay had articulated your goals in terms of, I don't know if you're supposed to get both discovery meetings, but I think it was like 1 discovery meeting a quarter or 1 discovery meeting a month. How did that change? How did that change your plan basically?
So more or less, I believe the numbers doubled, but that also was the expectation too, that a lot of my activities are going to align with the business development person.
I agree.
So
yeah, and I think what's happened is the mix kind of, you could see the goal kind of driving the specific activities that you have there, right? So a lot of this is to drive basically either inbound leads or referrals or things like that. So it's kind of, that's what I really commend you for, is because I think marketing and sales is kind of an artificial distinction sometimes. Because what we're involved in is the buying process of our client, right? That's what we're involved in. And marketing has just become what we call marketing. It's just become a bigger part of that. And it's lined up really strongly in your plan here. So before we wrap up, what do you got? 2 minutes. Does anybody have any questions or feedback for Marissa's plan? Somebody turned on their mic this one. It's okay if we don't.
I have a million questions, so I was trying to pick which one is the best for everybody to hear. But so Marissa, I'm probably going to reach out to you because a lot of the points that you made are really interesting. Outsourcing your business development, I think, is so intriguing to me. I've just never heard of it. How did you go about finding the right company for that?
So what's funny actually is that the company that we ended up going with actually reached out to Teresa, our director of business development, trying to sell services. So she already pretty much looked at that as, okay, they got further than most people get with me with their message, so I'm willing to kind of give them a shot. So if something like that stands out to you, that's already probably a prime candidate, but the world is your oyster, so to speak. It doesn't even have to necessarily be somebody local. You just want to make sure that they're completely understanding like your company's message and branding, and that you kind of have a hand in that, and that they're not just running rogue.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is just kind of making sure that they're the right person to be doing that.
Definitely.
Did you guys have each other's emails? If not, I think it should be. Well, I could send you both each other's emails in case you.
Yeah, I've got it.
Yeah, please do. Like anybody that has any questions after that are more specific to your business, that's totally fine.
And I think I said this before, I think in this meeting too, but the one thing I'd love to have you and your owners, the mindset that I'd like you and your owners to have for next year is you guys want to be known as the dominant MSP in your geography and in your selected industries, right? Oftentimes it's kind of easy to do like a marketing plan, which is like a slight variation of what you did last year. And I would actually say, you know, for many of you, you're in a position to be recognized and differentiated from all the other kind of average MSPs that are around you. So I would set that as a real goal for yourselves as you kind of think about your marketing plan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I think we're wrapping up. I don't know if there's one on the calendar for the week between Christmas and New Year's, but I'll cancel that, and then we can get reestablished at after the beginning of the year on these meetings. So with that, again, happy holidays to everybody. It's always good to see you guys and work with you. And thanks again, Marissa, for putting in the time and energy and effort for a great presentation.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Marissa.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you later.
No problem.
Bye-bye.
Bye.